What's up, podcast? Before we start today's episode, I just want to make sure that you guys are following and subscribing all of our content at svaofamerica.com/AssistanceHQ. There you can find all of the latest and greatest content, podcasts, articles, and so much more. The link's going to be in the description, so make sure you don't ever miss a piece of content. It's a whole lot of assistance going on. And now, a moment from our sponsor.
You are listening to The Ramblings. We have another amazing episode for you guys. We have another co-host. Welcome to the show, William Shchultz. He is another entrepreneurial sales marketer. We met on LinkedIn. I sent him an invite. Gary V, you guys know how much of a big fan I am of Gary V. So great content coming today. Like, tune in, listen with your ears, with your soul, if you would. So, William, introduce yourself.
Hey, how's everybody doing? My name is William Shchultz. As Angelo had stated, I been working in sales and marketing for, I don't know, it seems like almost my entire life to some degree. But most recently, in the last 10 years, I've been director of business development for a couple of different restoration and construction companies, basically doing sales and marketing in the construction and restoration world. And I also have a media, photography, video, and content creation company that we just started about 2 years ago. And then most recently, a year ago, I started doing some real estate investing, and that's been going well as well.
So diverse. Have you always been this diverse in your business?
You know, I would say no. The first time I kind of got into business or started looking at things from the lens of a business was I was in the music business back in the day. I think I was like 17 or 18, and a friend of mine, older friend, started a record label, man, when I was in college, and I would come home on the weekends, and he had like a little 4-track tape recorder and a beat machine and a keyboard, and I would just spend my entire weekend in his bedroom making beats. And he started a record label, and you know, we were all kind of hood cast, and I was kind of the kid that went to school, the athlete, graduated. So like I had a lot of responsibility in this record label. This was back in like with Master P and those guys were first starting. So that's when I was like, that was my first introduction. It was just a singular focus on music business pretty much from that point on, probably from the next 20 some years after that.
Wow, that's long. So you consider sales, marketing, and of the such your craft, How long have you been working on your craft, and where did this craft of sales and marketing start?
I mean, I was thinking about this earlier before today because I knew we were going to be talking today, and I figured that we're both Gary V fans. So I think that I want to give the most value to your audience and the most value to people listening out there, and I want to talk about things on a deeper level. And I think for me, I've always been in sales or marketing, and I'm going to tell you why. I grew up without a father, okay? So I grew up without a father in my home, and I grew up without brothers and sisters. So I'm an only child, and I think my whole life I've always been trying to sell myself to people. I don't know if that makes sense. So, and I'm sure there's people listening that will be able to can relate to that. And I think when you're in sales, part of your job in marketing is to sell yourself to your potential customer and your client. And I think that's where I developed my skill as, ever since I can remember. I always wanted people to like me. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to go out of my way and get out of character, all right, for somebody to like me. But I'm going to put myself out there and in hopes of getting somebody to kind of be attracted to me and like me, and at that point in time, develop a relationship.
Wow. So how would you say that mentality has affected, everything that you've done in life, If you've considered yourself someone to open yourself up, how has that, would you say, has affected you going out throughout your life?
Well, there's two ways to look at it. I mean, it's affected me in both positive and negative ways. Because on the negative side of things, you open yourself up to more criticism. You open yourself up to more, negative people in your life. You open up yourself to, more mistakes because, let's be honest, most people that are sheltered or closed off, the main reason they're like that is because it limits their exposure to, mistakes, right?
Right.
And so it opens you up for more bad things. Conversely, it opens you up for a lot more opportunity, a lot more good things, a lot more good relationships. And one of the great things that I've learned, didn't learn like my whole life, just figured out somewhat recently over the last couple of years, the negative things that it opens up to you you learn lessons from. So, even though it opens you up to some negative things on the flip side, man, you always learn more from your losses than your victories.
Yeah.
So all those mistakes that you've made opening up yourself, you learn from. So honestly, there really isn't any bad to it if you really look at it that way.
Wow, that's definitely a really light way of looking at things, a glass half full kind of person I see. So what kind of obstacles have you overcome in your path so far? You've had so many different things, and I'm sure from going from music to now, what kind of obstacles have you faced?
I would say that the biggest obstacles I had in my life early on would be growing up without a father and dealing with being a mixed race. And that was difficult for me growing up because every boy should have a father figure in his life, right? And when you don't have that, you can kind of stray away and look for that in areas that you might not necessarily want to be looking at that for. And then also trying to be accepted. Being accepted because what happened growing up, in the 90s and the 80s and 90s, when you were mixed, so there's a lot more mixed race families and things like that, a lot more acceptable now. But back in my era, it was a lot more difficult because, like, on one hand, you were white to the black kids, and on the other hand, you were black to the white kids. So that created some obstacles, And however, remember, like I was saying, negatives can create positives. As I was going through my teenage years, the 20 years, those insecurities led me to make bad decisions and put me in bad situations. But as I've gotten older, what happened is those situations of race, no dad, wanting to be liked, actually turned they actually blossomed my skill set. So like now, dude, like right now, I literally can go over to the hood and hang out with some brothers that are, thugging and drugging, man, like hardcore. And we're cool. We're eye to eye. I can also I was just hanging out with a city council member, like 2 months ago, hanging out at an election party, and I can hang out with millionaires and high society cats and everything in between. So the challenges that I faced have, obviously led to a much more developed and refined skill set, and they've become strengths, not weaknesses.
So offshoot question of that, being of someone of, I would say, of similar nature, of two crowds per se, talk about, the difference in when you're navigating those boroughs and trying to get your message across. You might be trying to get the same message across, but in each situation, how do you navigate? How do you choose to navigate?
That's a tough question. I think you might have to throw me a scenario out.
Okay, so
I can give you a concrete answer.
For example, we've talked about before, people having the entrepreneurial mindset in their goals, but not necessarily making the actions to, take on those goals. If you were giving advice to, whether it be your brother or a council member, how would you say, hey, whether you're giving advice of critique or criticism or of improvement, how would you change that message? Some people are the same way, whether they're out and they're liked by both. Some people kind of mold themselves and change. Do you use the same dialect? Do you talk the same?
Well, obviously, if I'm talking to some brothers from the hood, man, that I grew up with, we're gonna talk a little differently in order for me to get my message across. But the thing versus if I was in a room with a bunch of, millionaires that grew up in the suburbs and aren't really used to how, hood cats talk. I'm gonna be, in terms of my terminology and the way I articulate myself, it might be different for the audience, but who I am at my core is going to remain the same. And typically what I can do in those situations is use experiences and use my personal experiences as reference points, right? Because if you're in the hood and you're talking about you overcame a certain mentality, that resonates whether you're in the suburbia, that resonates whether you're in high society, that resonates whether you're in the hood, because everybody can respect somebody that's come from something and overcame it. So if I was to say, yeah, man, here's a good example, like 10 years ago, and this is a true story, 10 years ago, I was living in my mom's basement, man, because I was working in the music business, the economy had crashed, things were tight. I was living in my mom's basement, and my kids were living, my two sons were in her, what used to be her office, but she made it into a bedroom for us. I was living there for almost 2 years, I can tell that story to any crowd and any audience, and regardless of the words or the vernacular, the English, whatever you want to call it, the slang I use, no matter who's in the room, they're going to hear that story and they're going to be able to draw something to that, resonate with that.
Wow. I like that. So in what you're doing, moving back towards business a little bit, in your craft, do you have anything that you're currently working on right now that you'd like to talk about? Is there any project you can say that is really testing your skills, and how is it testing your skills?
I would say that the project that I'm working on is myself, and it's pushing myself to the limit in terms of what I can accomplish and what I can do. And then to take that a step further, the actual project, I would say, would be the personal branding. I have been working on, probably started really, really like getting serious about working on my personal brand maybe about three months ago. And that's been a challenge because, again, not to beat a dead horse, but listening to the Gary Vee stuff, it's really important to put yourself out there. The only thing that was holding myself back was, insecurities, things in my own head that I should build a personal brand because I've been through so much in life, I have a story to tell. I have a lot to share, and I think I can impact people's lives in a positive way. So I had to just get off my ass and get out of my head and start putting myself out there. And the reason why that's a business project is because if I'm going to be my own proof of concept, meaning if I can build my own personal brand and then build my businesses off of my personal brand, now I have a business that I can go to you and say, hey, Mr. Angelo Roberts, how would you like me to help you build your personal brand? Because I did it for myself.
Right.
I can now do it for you and help you grow your businesses.
I like that. Now, for the people that are listening, they hear that, but now what would explain what steps you personally have taken in bettering yourself, because people say, oh, well, if you want to go to good business, you have to find what makes you happy and you have to be happy with what you have and all of this other stuff. But, when you're not at that point, it's kind of hard to see that at the end of the tunnel. So what steps do you or have you taken to really put yourself in this better kind of position?
Well, I was on I did a podcast with a brother here in Minnesota, opened up his own boxing gym and 24 fitness center. It was like Anytime Fitness / boxing gym, first of its kind. And when we were talking in that conversation, something came up and I asked him a question about setting goals. And as we were kind of discussing setting goals, we realized the biggest problem people have is they set these lofty ass goals that are way too high. And they're really unattainable. Meaning, yes, let me back that up. It's not that they're not attainable, but they're unattainable within the time frame that you want them. And so what I've done and what I did subconsciously, like I did this subconsciously. I didn't like sit down and like, oh, I'm gonna do this and that. I subconsciously set micro goals. I call them micro goals. So I'm gonna give you a great example. Today it's first week of May, week and a half of May. At the end of July, I weighed almost 300 pounds, all right? I was like up to 296. And I was on vacation with my then girlfriend, and I knew after that vacation, I was gonna embark on a weight loss journey, right? And a permanent lifestyle change. And I knew that I wanted to lose 60 pounds, right? But I was smart about how I approached that, and I was like, I'm going to do this at 10 pounds at a time.
All right.
So my goal, so right now I'm almost down 50 pounds total, right? So I'm about
Congratulations.
12 pounds, thank you. I'm about 12 pounds from my overall goal. But that's not how I think about it. Really, what I'm looking at right now is I am like 2 pounds away from my last goal, my next goal. And then when I accomplish that, I'm going to focus on the next 10. So it's micro goals. I think people try to set their goals too hard and they don't focus, because I'll tell you what happens when you achieve a small goal. It feels good, man, right? And then you achieve another small goal and it feels good, and another one, and it starts to compound and it starts to snowball. And all of a sudden you develop this habit of accomplishment. You develop this habit of I can do this, you know, and boom, boom, it explodes. And now you look back and it's like, oh my God, I'm off and running.
Exactly. Oh, actually, we've talked about that on this podcast before when and on an episode. You know, when you are able to take happiness and the micro successes, it really gives you motivation to build, you know, yourself up. If you don't have a support team, or if you don't have people, you know, gunning for you or anything, taking pride in those small micro goals that can give you that motivation of, hey, I accomplished this. If you took it a pound at a time, like, hey, I got down a pound, I want to get down another pound, and then before you realize it, you're down your entire goal. That's really something that's compounding and very motivational. So moving again into business, what are you looking forward for in the future? You know, we are all entrepreneurs and visionaries here and everything. What are you aiming for long term with your business?
You know, long term, I would like to be able to create enough of a business structure. And I got like a 9-year goal, but you know, that's kind of where I have it at. I'm trying to create a business structure through real estate investing and then through my own skill sets, to where I have a business that kind of runs itself, that I oversee, so I can take my time and my resources to help underserved communities. Like, my overall goal is to get in the underserved communities and help. And that main goal is going to be to help people in underserved communities become financially literate. Because I believe that too much of what we focus on is the government owes us. And you said you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, so
Yes.
You can understand where one of the things he always harps on in that book is the poor don't teach themselves about money, right? So I wanted to get into my community that I came from, and I want to teach them how to get money, but not just get it. Like a rapper's like, go get the bag, go get the bag. But the rapper, they're telling you to buy gold chain, spend it at the club, and pop bottles. They're
We're
not
gonna have to
telling
work
you,
on that together.
Ralph, you know, so that's my thing. I want you to learn how to build your credit score. I want you to learn what good debt and bad debt is. I want you to learn what a good investment is and what a bad investment is.
Okay,
I want
so real quick, what for these people, you know, you're in real estate, you're in all of these different things. So at some point, investment is going to have come up. The word investment versus cost. You know, explain investment versus cost, and good debt versus bad debt, you know, when you're dealing in multiple different areas to these people. You know, we want to bring as much value. What in your terms, how would you describe, you know, an investment versus a cost, and then in flips of that for the good debt versus the bad debt?
Well, I'm going to make it real simple, because I know sometimes our financial guys are a lot smarter than I am, and so they use big fancy words and terms that I don't understand. You can probably sympathize with that because you've been an accountant and you're really good with math, and that doesn't work for me. So I like to explain it to where people can figure it out.
Yes.
Right. So I would say that a cost, right? A cost is a car. Okay. The reason why a car is a cost is because it loses value every single day. All right. It doesn't increase in value. So, for instance, like when you buy a brand new car off the lot, and you really don't, honestly, the bank owns it, right? Because you dropped a certain percentage of money down, you're making payments, you're paying interest on those payments, and you're paying higher insurance. You're spending a lot of money on this thing that's losing value. That's a cost. conversely, if you take the money that you dropped on that car, you're spending on that car, and you buy let's say a rental property, well, that property, real estate doesn't typically lose value over time. It goes up in value. So that is an investment. When you invest something that goes up in value over time and you're not losing money, it's actually putting money in your pocket. It could even be something even more simple. Like, I know you were in the tennis shoe business or customizing shoes. If you buy some Nikes that just came out today, and they're, if you're not going to resell those or customize them and try to do something to make some money off them, then it's just the cost. Me, I don't know a lot about tennis shoes or sneakers. You're on the East Coast, call them sneakers. And so if I buy a pair of shoes, there's a cost for me, because I'm not going to flip them. I'm not going to make any money off of them.
Okay. I like how you made that differentiation between, for certain people, if you don't plan on, like, the action and plan, if you don't plan on doing anything with it, it's definitely a cost. So
Yeah.
you're here, and you said, at one point you were living with your mom. Explain the gap. How do you get from living with your mom because things are bad to, very well put together, it seems, looking multiple businesses, things are going well. You have a cleaner?
Yeah. I do have a cleaner, but they only come twice a month, and it's so I can get 6 hours of my time, so I can continue working on my businesses.
That still sounds. How much does it cost to get 6 hours of your time?
Well, it depends on what you're looking for, right? But I pay, it costs me about $250 a month to have somebody clean my house. But the place I live in is like a 4-bedroom, 3-level house. It's a lot of work. You know what I'm saying? It's just a little townhouse, but there's a lot of carpet, right? So you gotta vacuum. You gotta. It's just a lot of work. So it was taking me anywhere between 3.5 hours every other weekend to clean the house. So it would be presentable, and I didn't always make good money. Like, I had to clean like I said, I was living in my mom's basement, so I am not afraid of hard work, or I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. So to get to that point where I could get out of my mom's basement and then afford to have a cleaner, I would say it was a lot of having to do a lot of self-reflection and a lot of self-accountability, and a lot of having to be patient. And it wasn't 10 years ago where the light bulb went off for me. Like, I'll tell you the truth, honestly, the last 2 years, maybe 3 years, is when the light bulb really went off. So the 7 years leading up to that was a lot of ups and downs, but I was still moving forward, right? I was still trying to better myself little by little by little. And I would say the biggest key to that, to really answer your question, would be being patient and moving forward. Being patient and moving forward at the same time.
And what do you mean by being patient and moving forward at the same time?
Well, if I was in my mom's, here's a good example. When I was living in my mom's basement, she had this couch, right? I wouldn't even call it a couch. It was like wood, and then it had like a thin mat on it, maybe about this thick, so maybe like 4 or 5 inch cushions, I should say. Right. And that was like cushions on the butt part and on the back part, and that's what I slept on for almost 2 years. And my mom would say, "Why don't you buy a bed?" And I was like, "Because I never want to get comfortable, because I don't want to live here. This is not where I want to be."
I love that.
I never bought a bed because she was like, "Let me get you." I'm like, no. I'm gonna, and it was fucking uncomfortable. It was cold down there. It was a little moldy. But while I was there, I knew that I wasn't gonna be here forever. So that allowed me to be patient, right? To say that this is not what I'm confined to. I'm more than this. This is temporary. And every little step I took, it was a step to get out of that basement and move on to another different place in life. So I had to learn to be patient with myself where I was at in life, because I knew mentally I was moving forward. Sometimes you don't physically move forward in life, but mentally you're there. And it can be frustrating. Don't get me wrong. Not every day I was had rainbows shooting out of my butt. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like sunshine. You know, I wasn't that happy all the time.
Right.
But over time, you know, I was able to get out of that situation. But it was all up here.
Mm. Mm. So we've changed paces a lot since coronavirus and everything. You being a sales and marketer, you dealing primarily with people and everything. How has this challenge, or how have you been overcoming this particular obstacle in your life?
Well, so for my kind of like my day job, my day business, I'm director of business development for a company called Rainbow International Restoration of St. Paul, Minnesota. And we're basically a water, fire, mold, storm damage company. Basically, we deal with a lot of insurance claims when things are messed up on people's houses. So my primary client base are insurance agents. So I spend a lot of my time going into insurance agent offices and introducing myself, introducing our business, building relationships with them. When our quarantine and shelter in place stuff came down, obviously that part of our business and my sales and marketing, that's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. I can't go to any offices. So what I've been doing in that business is we've started to create more content and do more stuff online. I have a call sheet. Oh, I thought it was laying out here somewhere. I have a call sheet. I've been calling my agents on the phone. And what's changed is I don't sell anymore. I'm not selling them anything when I'm calling them and talking to them. I'm just calling to let them know that I'm thinking of them and that I truly care about them. Because I think in this time right now, I don't think it's too wise to sell a whole lot. I think it's more important to just be present. I think that's where you'll have more of a long-term impact with your customers. Just be present with them. Don't try to sell.
I like that, guys. You hear, ramblers, you're listening. This is not the time for selling. This is the time for offering your service for free if you can. If not, don't offer them at all, and just make sure that you're checking up on your customers and clients and making sure that you're aware that they're okay. Just say, hi, how are you doing? This is not the time to be selling. I like that point. That's really where you separate the companies that really care about their customers and clients and everything versus those that don't. And you're really able to distinguish the differences between, what real, we'll call it loyalty is, because not only do customers and clients have brand loyalty, whether we like Nike or Adidas or whatever companies we like, I feel that those companies should also have their customer and client loyalty as well.
Right. And I think what people don't understand sometimes is that there's so much power in when you talk about brand recognition. So, I talked about building a personal brand earlier. So there's so much more power in your brand or your personal being associated with the feeling of good and not pressure, right? So when people are like, oh, I'll give you an example. I called one of my clients, I think Thursday, and I was talking to their office manager and found out that during our conversation that her son was tested positive for COVID-19.
Oh.
What if I never asked her how she was doing and I just went straight into, hey, well, we haven't got any calls from you lately. Is everything okay? Because we really want, we're here, we're working. And here she is trying to wrap her emotional and mental mind around her son's got COVID-19. Why does when next time she sees me or thinks of William, she's going to be like, that SOB was more concerned with his company. He doesn't care about me. Instead, I got to listen about her son, listen about what she was going through and how it was affecting her. And now the next time she sees me, she's going to remember that, William took the time out of his day to call and talk to me about me and what I need. And I think often 2 times in sales and in marketing, we honestly focus way too much on what we want. We don't listen to the customer, not nearly enough.
I certainly agree. I've done sales myself, relatively short period of time. I'm not a fan of it. I consider myself good at it, but I'm nowhere close to a fan of sales marketing. I've done door to door, Kirby and energy solution sales. So I definitely understand what you mean by they only care about making the sale.
Yeah.
Now that we've gotten all of your success and everything out of the way, and now that you're a shining star, What is
I
your,
wish.
how do you continue to shine? What is your daily routine for success, and how do you continue? What is your, either is it a reminder? Do you wake up and, have a routine in what you do? What is your routine, and what does your day look like typically?
Well, my routine, I usually get up about, I would say in the last 9 months, I've been getting up at 4 in the morning.
Say that again.
I get up at 4 in the morning, 4
One more
a.m.
time.
I get up at 4 a.m.
4 a.m. He beats
Yes.
me, guys.
Yes. I get up about 4 a.m. And at that point in time, I typically hop on Hootsuite, which is my social media manager, and I start populating the content that I'm going to put on my multiple platforms. If I haven't done it the night before, then I do that. And I usually do that for anywhere between like an hour or so. And then, well, not just Hootsuite, but then I'm going on LinkedIn primarily, and then I'm engaging with posts. So I'm posting comments, I'm posting likes, I'm answering my inbox, I spend about an hour every morning doing that. Then where I live, we have a gym, but the gym's closed. So I've created a workout room in my basement. Then I go down there, I work out 5 days a week, between 4 or 6 days a week, but I would say 90% of the time it's 5 days a week. I work out for a minimum of 1 hour or 600 calories burned. It's going to be one or the other. But typically I work out, like today I worked out 70 minutes and I burned 597 active calories. I get up, I eat breakfast, and by the time I'm done eating breakfast, it's like 8:30 and 8 o'clock, and the rest of the world and people are getting up, and I've already accomplished 4 hours of work. So I didn't always do that. I just started doing that like 9 months ago. And it's changed my life. And I can't pull it up on my phone, but when you said reminders, I have a daily reminder, 2 of them. One that says, just be patient. I have to remind myself constantly to be patient, because I know what I have coming to me, and I know what I'm working towards. And sometimes when you're an ambitious person, you get a little impatient. I'm sure you can attest to that, Angelo. So I have to remind myself. Yeah. I have a daily reminder that says be patient. And the other one that I heard this on a podcast about 7 months ago, and I keep this one on there. And the reminder is the answer is always no if you never ask the question. The answer is always no if you never ask the question. So that more for me was for like sales. That's more for me to say, if you're not being active and you're not putting yourself out there and you're not asking the questions, then obviously it's going to be no. And that could be like dating. That could be, maybe there's this girl on Instagram you've been like crushing on, man. Ask her out then, man. If she says no, so what?
That's it.
Because if you know what I'm saying? So it's just more like a go for it. And it's reminded me to stay aggressive.
I like that. I really do. So we've covered a number of things in this podcast. How would you like to wrap it up? What would you like to say? What advice, tips, wrap ups? How would you like to end your segment today?
I would say, if we're going to talk about advice, I would say, I actually recorded a video this morning, so I'll touch on this, and then I'll be posting it tomorrow. So what I realized is that most of my life, not even all of my life, I've been afraid of success. I've been afraid to succeed. And for the majority of my life, a lot of people saw, because I've done a lot of, like I had a record label, a promotion, I was doing shows, and people thought like, oh my God, you're doing all this and that. But in my mind, I was still scared. I could have went and pushed way harder. You know what I'm saying? But deep down inside, I was afraid to fail. I was afraid of what people thought. I was afraid of what people would think if I failed. And then what I realized probably about a year ago, just through reading, through consuming good podcasts, not just Gary Vee, but other podcasts that aren't even motivational, but entrepreneurs, real estate casts, business casts, the recurring theme that you always hear associated with success is failure. I can't tell you how many times I've tuned into a show or read a book, and you're thinking they're going to give you all these secrets to doing this and that. They just start talking about all the times they failed. And it's like, oh, okay. And then you start realizing that failure and success are tied together. There is no success without failure. So about a year ago, that allowed me to realize that it's okay to fail. So I am still afraid to fail, but the difference is I've accepted that I'm going to fail. And that's been a game changer for me. My life has completely changed. And I'll tell you why. Being afraid to fail for me doesn't keep me from doing it anymore. It pushes me harder. It makes me more organized. It makes me more focused because I don't want to fail. It's a whole, it's you know what I'm saying? Versus when I was like, I don't want to fail. It's not okay to fail. It's not okay. I'm not going to do it. And that's what happens. You don't do the shit. Excuse my language. You just sit on your hands. And then you sit on the sidelines. And then you get on social media and you start talking crap about everybody else that's out there doing things and getting it. Because deep down inside, you're too afraid to go get it yourself. So my advice to all you guys out there, please understand it's okay to fail. And it's part of your path to success. It's okay to be afraid to fail, but it's not okay to not accept failure. You have to learn to accept failure.
Oh my gosh. I love it. I absolutely love it. So before I get you out of here, we're going to do something called the 60-second power second. I want you to give the audience everything that you can think of on what you do and where they can contact you. So we're going to give you 60 seconds on the clock because this is your elevator pitch because you're going down. I just thought of that. Listen, guys, I have no reason to be that.
Now you got it, man. You got a thing now. That's awesome.
All right.
So look,
60 seconds is being put on now, and
all right, guys.
Go.
All right, guys. So William Shchultz here. If you want to find me, the best place to find me right now is on LinkedIn. Just go on there and look for William Shchultz. You'll see me as the owner of Vivid Concepts Media. You'll see this beautiful mug on there. And honestly, you can find me through Angelo as well because we're obviously connected on there as well. You can go on LinkedIn and you can find me under Will Ways in LinkedIn. That's W-I-L-L. I'm not LinkedIn, on Instagram, excuse me. That's W-I-L-L-W-A-Y-S. That's Will Ways. And also on my podcast, which is the Permanent Lifestyle Podcast. You can go on YouTube and just Google the Permanent Lifestyle Podcast. That's going to be your home for positive, life-changing, and informative content. That's what we put on there. So if you're looking for, when you're done listening to Angelo's and you're like, all right, man, I've already binged, watched all of his stuff, then you can come on over to me and we'll give you some more extended versions of the great stuff that he's already putting out. So look, go to LinkedIn, look for William Shchultz. LinkedIn, that's William Shchultz. That's Shchultz. S-C-H-U-L-T-Z. You can find me on Instagram as well at Will Ways.
We absolutely love it. Thank you so much for joining.
Hey Ramblers, before you go, make sure you're following us on social media at Assistance HQ across the board for all content and exclusives. And for an even more personal touch, subscribe to our weekly newsletter with the link in the description.